You can't drop the ball as a landlord.
Should housing be treated as a human right or a market commodity?
You've seen stories of people renting out their shed to people. Nobody should be taken advantage of.
Will the Decent Home Standard improve housing or just increase rental price?
If the landlord has to pay, the tenant will pay in the long term. They're not capping what a landlord can ask for a property.
Do blanket bans like no DSS go far enough to protect vulnerable renters?
If you can't take over asking price offers, the next best thing is to put slum landlords, rogue landlords, making people live in.
How long do you think it's going to be before people start to realise there may be some issues with the Renters' Rights Bill? Should landlords have the right to evict tenants without a good reason?
Yes, private landlords should have that privilege for their private house. Social landlords, maybe not so. We've got to be careful that we're not blurring the lines between private landlords and social landlords.
Are landlords being scapegoated for the current housing crisis?
Absolutely, yes, they are being scapegoated. Because of the lack of new properties, new buildings being built, we've got a social housing crisis. We know we've got a housing crisis. What the government are doing, and they're making that Mrs. Jones's problem, who bought her one property to buy to let 20 years ago, as the solution to the problem. That is not the solution.
Should housing be treated as a human right or a market commodity?
That's in two halves. Social housing should be a human right. Private housing is and will always be a commodity. Problem we've got now is we're blurring the lines between private housing and social housing. Everybody in the world should be entitled to a roof over their head, but that roof should be supplied by their government.
Do blanket bans like no DSS go far enough to protect vulnerable renters?
No, doesn't go far enough at all, because there'll always be a loophole to everything that's put out there. The root of the problem is you're making that universal credit tenant a private landlord's problem by enforcing it on them. The real solution is build more social housing.
Will the Decent Home Standard improve housing or just increase rental price?
Both. If the landlord has to pay, the tenant will pay in the long term. It's really interesting that, because I'm all for increased standards of rented property to the extent where we've had to tell landlords that we can no longer manage their property because they're not prepared to maintain it to a high enough standard as what we require as letting agents. Because any dilapidated properties, run-down properties, cause us more problems. Tenants call in, this is broken, that's broken, causes us more problems. So we're all for high quality housing. But if a landlord's got to spend £10,000, £20,000 on certain upgrades, that's going to be added to the rent amount they're going to want to be asking for it. Just like if you were installed granite worktops, 2 properties, granite worktops, standard worktop, the granite worktop's going to get more money.
Should tenants have the right to challenge rent increases through tribunals?
Absolutely, yes. This is an interesting one because I'm a property managing agent. You would assume that I'll be saying no, but nobody should be taken advantage of. So if someone's asking £1,300 a month for something that's actually the market value is perceived to be £1,000, they should be able to challenge that.
Perry, what's going to be the impact of the proposed rent caps in the Renters' Rights Bill?
Higher rents. And you're thinking, what do you mean? They're not capping what a landlord can ask for a property. They're not allowing landlords to accept bidding wars and over asking price offers. So guess what's going to happen? Landlords and letting agents are just going to increase the initial asking price in the first place. If you can't take over asking price offers, the next best thing is to put it as high as possible and take an under asking price offer.
So Perry, should rogue landlords face criminal charges for poor management of their property?
Absolutely. Slum landlords, rogue landlords, making people live in substandard conditions and thinking they can charge huge amounts. You've seen stories of people renting out their shed to people because the people haven't even got the right to rent in the UK. And actually, those people that haven't got proper immigration, blah, 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 they're the most high at risk. That's a human standards problem, like human rights. Yes, rogue landlords who are purposely flaunting the law should be imprisoned. I'd go that far.
I absolutely love dogs, and I've, for big chunks of my life, had a dog, but have found it very difficult at times to rent. Should landlords be able to prevent someone from renting their property if they're a dog owner?
No, but 2 caveats. The landlord should be allowed to insist on dedicated specific pet insurance against their property and possessions. And 2, tenants should have a pet passport, which says, I've rented here for the long time with my pet, and it was absolutely fine. Almost like a landlord's reference. But you see, the thing is of referencing, if you were renting with your dog, went back to your mum's with your dog, renting with your dog, it'll only go back to your most recent landlord reference, which you won't have one. So you should have a passport for your last 2 tenancies from the landlord at the time of moving out, saying that my property was kept beautifully by Paul and his dog. That should be allowed.
How long do you think it's going to be before people start to realise there may be some issues with the Renters' Rights Bill? And who do you think will notice some of those issues first? What order will it go in terms of discovering some of the problems?
I think it'd be 12 to 18 months from when the bill comes in, which is suggested to be spring, summer this year, 2025. And I think the agents on the front line will be the first ones to see it. So I would suggest, if anyone's interested in how this is going to play out, you subscribe to this channel and we'll keep you informed. We'll have another one of these sessions in 12 months' time to look at the repercussions of the Renters' Rights Bill, and let's see where the land lies.
So what are some of the wins for renters in the upcoming Renters Reform Bill?
The stopping of blanket bans. If you've got kids, if you've got pets, if you're on universal credit, that can only be a positive thing. I think the other one will be the no-fault eviction. That's going to give tenants more security, which is nice. I think you've got the no fixed-term tenancy is going to be 50-50. That'd be a benefit to some, and many tenants would like fixed peace of mind of how long they're going to be in the property for as a minimum. I think we've got the landlord database, hugely, I think that's a great idea. I just hope in time that they bring that to have a tenant database as well. So there's lots of benefits. Absolutely, there's going to be loads of benefits, and it'd be really interesting to see how it plays out because it is happening.
What's your top piece of advice for any landlord, bearing in mind the Renters' Rights Reform Bill is very, very, very likely coming into play very, very soon?
Get the best managing agent that you can afford. And I say that because many landlords self-manage. I generally find they have the most problems because there's, I think, 171 pieces of legislation currently they need to keep up to date on, and that we as agents do. And if you aren't, you're going to cause yourself some problems. So if you're self-managing, get a really good managing agent. It'll be worth the fee that they take in return on the investment. You're investing in a good managing agent. The second one is, if you've got a managing agent right now and you've got a couple of gripes in the back of your mind thinking, oh, I'm not too happy with them for this and for that. If they're dropping the ball on not responding quick enough to a tenant's maintenance issue, imagine what they're going to be like dropping the ball on something so important like serving the correct notices and stuff like that. You can't drop the ball as a landlord.